Welcome to this week's episode. Okay, so we're going to wrap up our series by talking about 4 tools for coping with your emotions. It's really important that we learn how to cope with our emotions with more kindness. You know, emotional eating happens at times. It's not bad or wrong, it's not shameful, but the goal is ultimately to have more tools in our tool belt than just food. And we need other tools to cope with our emotions with kindness if we aren't going to simply turn to food to cope with all of those emotions. Look, it's very normal to kind of cope with emotions through food. I used to think that like emotional eating was like a bad thing that you needed to fix, and I tried to always like fix it. And then I started to have a more like gentle approach, which was, you know what? Like life is hard sometimes. If I need to eat some mac and cheese to like comfort myself or have like a cookie with like a latte, like so be it. You know what I mean? Like I'm not shooting up heroin or something. And so I started to have a much more like gentle, graceful approach. Think about it. As a baby, you are wired to like be comforted by food, especially sweet things. Breast milk doesn't come in like 8 flavors, y'all, right? It doesn't have like the sour flavor and the bitter flavor and like the salty. It's like the sugar flavor is on tap for all of us. So it's normal to like sweet things. It's normal to desire sweet things because the very first thing that we eat, that we drink, is our mother's milk or formula, which has simple sugars in it, right? That's what the little baby's body and stomach can digest properly. So what we can do is focus on coping better with our emotions by focusing more on body, mind, spirit, and relationships. So I'm going to talk about each one of those and then give you a tool, just one tool. There's many tools within all of these aspects, but I'm going to give you one tool that works well for me and my clients that you can use as well. So let's talk about emotions. If you are a human, you are going to experience negative emotions in life, right? I mean, like already today, I've experienced some loneliness, I've experienced some disappointment, I've experienced some anxiety, right? Like I've also experienced joy and excitement and contentment. So it's very normal to go through a range of emotions throughout our day. I think one of the things that's helpful to remember is like this too shall pass. So your emotional state is going to change. It's going to change because you take an action, you get a good night's sleep, you have a new thought. But we need to have more capacity to kind of deal with the full range of emotions that are coming to us without having to like constantly fix it, right? Like, okay, cope with emotions. How about just like be with emotions? Oh, I feel lonely. Like, do I need to change that? Do I need to fix that? Do I need to like move myself or numb myself out of that emotion? Or like, could I just feel it? Could I just experience it in that moment without meaning, without, you know, creating a big drama or story around it? So let's talk about how emotions affect the mind. You know, we've talked about the central nervous or the sympathetic nervous system over the past couple weeks. Your sympathetic nervous system can get triggered when you have a distressful emotional situation. So that can trigger all kinds of reactions in your body, from beating heart to tense muscles, increased breathing rate, increased heartbeat, and that can then affect your emotional state even more. I love to think about like the feedback loop. So when we feel happy, right, we just naturally smile. So the emotion that we're feeling inside our mind comes out physically on our face, right? I was at the doctor's office the other day getting some blood drawn, and the girl at the counter, like she was not in a good mood. And that interior emotion manifested on her physically, right? She had a flat affect. Her face was just, you know, kind of bored looking. Her tone was monotone and kind of short with me. It manifested physically. Now, the cool thing is there's been studies that show changing your facial expression can change your interior emotional state. So this is called the facial feedback loop. And so while we understand that when I feel happy, I smile, we can also smile to shift our emotional state. and feel happier just by changing our physicality. This is also why there's research now around like depression and anxiety being treated with Botox. I had Botox a couple years ago. I just got it once for like those little lines between your eyebrows. And I have to say that I did feel happier because I couldn't make like the angry face, right? It's so fascinating that if you can't make a face that's connected with that emotion, it can change your emotional state. So what I recommend you do is you focus on calming your physical self with Yoga Nidra. This is the tool in the body section. If you've never done Yoga Nidra, it is not yoga, okay? It's not yoga the way you think of it. It's not, getting on a mat and stretching and wearing yoga pants and doing downward dog and all the things. Yoga Nidra is done laying down, ideally. You want to be as comfortable as possible with your eyes closed, and you're just listening to a guide walk you through some visualizations. It's very interesting. I started doing it in Hawaii a couple years ago, and it was so relaxing. I would often fall asleep doing it. And now whenever I have a negative emotion, if I feel lonely, if I feel sad, if I feel distressed, I will often start with a Yoga Nidra. I'll be like, okay, let's just regulate the nervous system. Let's just calm ourselves. Let's do a Yoga Nidra. Obviously, if you're in the middle of a work day, you can't like just lay down on the floor and do a Yoga Nidra. But like maybe you could go to your car, put the seat back and do one. You can find Yoga Nidras on YouTube and or Spotify. Just search for Yoga Nidra, Nidra. There's tons of really great ones out there. And you can search for 10-minute ones, 20-minute. They go up to 45 minutes to an hour. So that's what I recommend as a coping tool for your body. Okay, so let's talk about mind. So much of our emotional distress originates in our thinking and poor thinking. Part of the reason that I named my podcast The Positive Thread 4.5 years ago when I started is because I knew I wanted to help people think better. I wanted to help women think better because I had discovered the power of not just positive thinking, right? But the power of like thinking well in my life. I had discovered the power of that in my 20s, and I wanted to really help women do that better. And so obviously there's tons of resources online now. I mean, wow, it's changed so much in just like the 16 years that I've been involved in personal development. We didn't even have Instagram, back in 2005 when I did my first personal development seminar. And so a lot of us we all engage as humans in things called cognitive distortions. These are faulty thinking patterns. Cognitive distortions include things like all or nothing thinking, catastrophizing, fortune telling, mind reading, labeling, self-blaming, blaming others, etc. Cognitive distortions occur for all humans, but they're heightened in people with mental health disorders like anxiety and depression. So cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, is a very powerful tool that I have developed myself in to cope with my own emotional state, and something I teach my clients now, how to identify common cognitive distortions. Because when it comes to body and eating, cognitive distortions run rampant, from all or nothing thinking, right, to self-blaming, labeling, mind reading, fortune telling, all these things. And so we really want to take every thought captive. The Bible tells us, like, take every thought captive. It's one of my favorite lines in the Bible. And we really want to question, mull over, and challenge your thoughts. And really, like, take a magnifying glass and, like, examine the thoughts you're having. If you feel disempowered by a thought, examine it. Question it. Don't just like accept it just because it came out of your brain, all right? You're awesome, you're great, but like your brain spits out faulty, disempowering thoughts on the reg. So make sure that you like check your brain. All right, the third area, spirit. So as humans, we are not just a mind and a body, but we are also a spirit. We are a soul. And so when you are in emotional distress, I think it is so valuable to connect spiritually. One of the tools my therapist taught me was to ask my soul, oh soul, why are you so downcast? Oh, like, oh soul, what's going on with you? Like, why are you in despair? What's troubling you? And asking that question of my soul has been like such a powerful inquiry and a cool place to start. I also love focusing on prayer. So that's your tool for spirit. Ask God for help. Even if you don't believe in God or you don't know if you believe in God, like God is still there. And so there's something very powerful about asking God for help. Admitting how small you are. Admitting how powerless you actually are. Admitting how vulnerable you are. Like you did not create the universe. You did not create matter. You did not create energy. You did not create DNA, right? Like you are actually like pretty small and insignificant. And that makes you able to access a relationship with God and allow you to start having God produce the results in your life and have God produce change in your life where you've struggled. And I know it's been extremely powerful for me to like come before God humble, admit my weaknesses, admit how I can't do it without him, and like watch the like miracles and like amazing things that he like creates in my life because like I'm not able to. You can also journal to God. You can just do like a simple journal prompt, but like writing out your fears, things that you're scared about, writing out your desires, things that you would like to have God do in your life, and then giving thanks and like always expressing gratitude. Okay, our final area is relationships. So I think relationships is a very like underutilized tool for coping. Our relations and community impact our emotional state greatly, right? Like anxiety and depression, suicide, all those things are tied to social isolation, lack of strong community. And I've really struggled with loneliness in my adult life because I bounced around from many different cities. I have jobs. I was always starting over. I lived in huge cities for the 15 years of my life, and two major cities, LA and New York. I moved to a tropical island and was isolated. COVID hit. I was just like, wow, I really feel this theme of isolation in my life. And so I've discovered how important like relationships and community are. I think everybody did during COVID, right? But now that I'm in a relationship with someone and it's so loving and healthy and amazing, I like really see the power of relationships for helping us cope with negative emotions. So one of my like red flags for my anxiety is if like I'm having like increasing or worsening anxiety, I pretty much need to have more time with my friends. I've discovered that like anxiety is tied to like loneliness and social isolation, and that's tied to not getting enough like female friend time. And so I will like make a point to schedule some girl dates and then also like exercise, because exercise is always improved for me when or anxiety is always improved for me when I exercise. So your tool for relationships is like phone a friend, right? Okay. Emotional eating, y'all, is so often tied to sadness, loneliness, anger, stress, and like a good chat with like a good girlfriend, it can like really do wonders for us. So I just encourage you to try one of these tools, like try a yoga nidra this week, or try prayer, or try CBT or something. Let me know how it goes for you, and tune in next weekend. I have a really big announcement. I'm really excited to share it with you. So I will talk to you next weekend.